And I think that's why he was accepted far more greater than whatever Luger was ever at that point. Is that the same take of it as from you there, Matt? I mean, I still think that still exists today when that sort of thing happens. Is that the way you look at it, Matt?
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. And like the way that they come across on their promos it is an important thing. It's like you said many times about Bret Hart, isn't it? There's a believability in the way that he spoke, rather than just screaming at you down through the TV. And it almost makes you want to listen to what they have to say more. People like Jake the Snake, when they're not screaming at you, but everything that they say, you know, you can tell they've thought about it, and because they're not actually getting swept away by their emotions.
Absolutely. Another fun fact here for Bob Holly. Bob Holly will be racing the full 19 event NASCAR Slim Jim series, by the way, in the fast car bought for him by, of course, Vince McMahon. On the 18th of the 3rd, including an event that will be televised. So, yeah, there you go, folks. I mean, I've got to be honest, that's the first time I've known about this. I feel like I should have known about it, considering this was his gimmick. But it's very rare, Matt, that you get a guy and then you say, actually, yeah, you're a racing gimmick, but you're actually going to go and do it as well. Can you race? Obviously, Bob Holly could do this for a living, but it's very seldom, Matt, that they are legitimately doing this in the profession, isn't it? Like when you get these gimmicks. When you think of all these gimmicks we've had, Duke the Dumpster, I don't know if Vince would have said, yeah, you've got to go and collect some bins every week to keep up appearances. But in this case, it looks like the full hog here, doesn't it, of Bob Holly?
Yeah, and like you said before, like in the in some other shows, when you was talking about $1 Million Man, it's just so great to see something like that in some ways, when they do invest in a person and actually do take the time and effort to make it look so legit. You know, because it's one thing to just come out there and say, oh, this is the guy and this is what he does and whatever, but if you're going to do that, at least make it believable in some sense, you know. Don't just expect us to believe everything you say, take it on face value. I mean, the WWE at this point, like you said before, is quite cartoony anyway. So, you know, if you're going to make it that way, put some believability in it, and then a bit more entertainment for the adults watching.
Absolutely. Rumours here around February time is that it's been reported that Roddy Piper will be in Diesel's corner for the match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Obviously that doesn't happen, but it's interesting to see what was going on, the rumour mill at that time. On the house shows, it's still very much Diesel beating Jeff Jarrett. Are you surprised, Matt, that they were running that program on the house shows a lot with these two guys in particular, with Jeff Jarrett? Or is that just a safety thing?
Yeah, I mean, I am kind of surprised. I'm assuming, you know, that they didn't have too many other ideas or options running for them at that time. But whatever them two were producing in that ring, they must have been quite satisfied with. But yeah, I would have expected them to mix it up a little bit by this point.
Yeah, and he, you know, through the Raw tapings again, he faces Jeff Jarrett, and there's Shawn Michaels, who introduces, of course, Sid Vicious, who's just called Sid at this point, as the bodyguard. The live Raw, which had Jim Cornette as the colour commentator, saw Diesel keep the title, beating Jeff Jarrett in a good match, and a lot of credit should go to Jarrett for carrying him as much, because Diesel was that bad. But because they worked the match standing up and the size difference was just incredible, yet they did a decent job with it. So I kind of feel like those two working together was a bit of not the best chemistry there all round. I want to get us straight into March now then, and there's the World Wrestling Federation is hit in a publicity home run, Meltzer reports, because they are getting a lot of attention by announcing none other than Lawrence Taylor participation in WrestleMania. The news, which was received by a lot of major press that gave it a lot of coverage, in particular the Northeast, which will probably turn the 1995 version of WrestleMania at the Hartford, and it's going to get mainstream publicity. On Monday Night Raw, the 27th of the 2nd, so back in February here, Taylor was interviewed, and apparently it's got a sizable rating increase to 3.4 rating, which was the highest rated Raw since August of the year before in '94. So obviously it sparked very nicely for them getting him in. Matt, I'm sure you remember the whole Lawrence Taylor being involved at this WrestleMania. Again, WWF, is this a stage of almost desperation here, Matt, for WWF? Like, they haven't got Hogan, they might not have the star power now to, like Hogan, to get everybody watching WrestleMania, so it's time to go elsewhere. Is that the sort of feeling you get from these sort of things, like with Pamela Anderson and Lawrence Taylor in particular here?
Yeah, I touched on that a little bit earlier when we spoke about the Shawn and Diesel rivalry, and I was saying I was surprised how that wasn't going on last, really, on that night.
Yeah.
And that this was actually quite, although it's good to have your celebrities involved to get some awareness from non-wrestling fans and draw that interest, I do kind of think it didn't have a place in the main event kind of area, especially just giving it to Bam Bam as well. It was all kind of a bit of a mystery to me how this all came about and why they decided that this was a great idea. Like when they were throwing ideas around the table, they were like, "Oh, man, we could do this."
Yeah.
He's a great main eventer.
Okay, well, let's get towards WrestleMania now then, because it takes place on the 27th of March. It's worth pointing out that WWF did a whole special pay-per-view thing here now. Get this is a little fun fact here. The DirecTV was offering WrestleMania along with the full first 10 Manias in all 11 show package for $49.95. The WWF is advertising this package of the first 10 Manias to see Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan in their prime. A little bit of a dig there to WCW. There's probably a lot of those shots around that time, but it's funny to think now, Matt, that when you think, oh well, with the whole network and the way we get it now, I guess we've got it pretty good now. I mean, that's quite expensive just the 10. Now you've got everything for $9.99. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? When you think about how the pay-per-view business has changed with the whole streaming, the way we do things today, when you see that as a package.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about it though. I think it's a marvellous thing, and I'm glad I don't have to pay exorbitant amounts these days.
Yeah, because you're not exactly keeping it either. Okay, so WrestleMania itself. I guess the fascination about WrestleMania 11 is that this match either gets forgotten, Matt, or it's kind of always that question of why was it on second before last, like you alluded to earlier, because people either just remember the Lawrence Taylor Bam Bam Bigelow match because it was literally the last match. Do you think this was a bit of a knock on Diesel and Michaels? I'm thinking if I was either of these guys, I would have been a little bit peed if I found out that I know, Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam are going to go on after me, being that this is the WWF title match. What's your take on that, Matt, and about the positioning of this? And looking back now, in hindsight, was this the right decision given what we now know?
No, I always consider WrestleManias to be a lot about the legacy that it leaves behind for history. And when I think of WrestleMania 11, it doesn't really stick in my mind at all. But if Shawn and Diesel were in the main event, then it would stand out a lot more prominently. It's just you judge a lot of WrestleManias by what is the main event. Some people just consider that to be the greatest spectacle of the night. But that was clearly not the case this time in 11. And it is a bit of a shame, because I just think that them two deserved that spot because there was a hell of a lot of build-up to the match that they were going to have, and I think if you're going to spend that much time on a storyline, at least give it the sort of spot it deserves.
Yeah, there was rumours going around at this point as well. I should have pointed this out that WWF did a really good job about the whole Pamela Anderson thing, about that she was going to no-show and who you're going to get in. And, of course, Michaels comes out with Jennifer McCarthy of the MTV, and then Diesel, of course, surprise, surprise, he comes out with Pamela Anderson solving that mystery of her disappearance. What did you make of this as a spectacle, Matt, as a main event WWF title match between, you've got two guys here that, of course, know each other so well. This is kind of your payoff match. I felt like on paper, this was this was going to be their version of the christening of almost making their guy Diesel here in this match. What was your take on the spectacle itself and how the match went?
Yeah, I thought it was solid enough, and I did enjoy it. And I think it was all about that anticipation. Like Diesel's finally arrived, and he's going to get his hands on him, and we're going to see what he can really do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see like if he can beat Shawn Michaels, because I know like he's been billed as the man at this point, but a lot of people who watch wrestling just for its pure like athleticism and the capabilities of the wrestlers will recognise Shawn as one of the best workers in the industry at this time. So I think a lot of people wanted to see how that was going to match up on sort of stage like WrestleMania.
Yeah. Did you think this was a good match, mate? Because I've watched this match a few times over the years. My friend was a big Shawn Michaels fan, so this would be one that he'd put on. And so, I love it. Sometimes I don't. But, watching it back this time just as recent, and I don't know if it's just going to be, depends what kind of mood you're in, but I thought this wasn't the worst match, and I thought it was better than what I remember it being. What was your take on it? Because it was, it wasn't overly long for a main event kind of match, and I don't know if that's just because there was another one to come after this, but it was, just over 20 minutes. And it was. I just felt it was more about hitting the bases, hitting the points, getting Diesel over as the guy. Your take first, Matt, on the match itself, and then also like what did you make of the reaction from the fans to this? Was it right in your opinion with Diesel here? Was it enough? Was he the true sort of baby face at this point?
Well, they definitely tried to make it into the spectacle that they were striving for, with all the celebrity attention that they were thrusting onto this, and I think it was good enough for WrestleMania. I'm not going to say it blew me away or that it was like the best one ever, but when it comes to WrestleMania matches, we all know that Shawn will he'll go out for this, and you need someone like Shawn in a match with Diesel to make Diesel look better than he actually is. So I think he was working a double shift on that one. But yeah, I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good. And I think they did a good job of getting it to this point. Like we said many times here about the rivalry that these two had. This being the payoff point. I thought it was pretty good. Again,
like I said, I think it was better when I watched it back. And of course, this was the match where I just felt like this was about Diesel, being almost made the guy, and I think Shawn Michaels was definitely all for it. It's kind of funny, Matt, when you think Shawn Michaels would have, when you consider the year before he'd kind of put over Ramon. This year he's putting over Diesel. And it's kind of like they're his main buddies at this point backstage. There's a whole clique thing going on, and it kind of positions them very nicely going forward. But the only thing I would say is I think this was, when I was watching Shawn Michaels, it was difficult to always take him as a heel because of just the size difference between these two guys. I don't know if it worked as well as it could have done, given their history and everything that I think they were trying to get over. But nonetheless, I did enjoy it. It's worth pointing out, Matt, and I'm sure you saw this when you watched it, but the amount of photographers that were at ringside and were constantly getting in the way of Shawn Michaels during the match. I'm sure you saw that. And apparently when I was reading up about this, it was WWF had allowed it just for that year because they wanted as as many different outlets to get pictures of Diesel and